Welcome, everyone, to today's Explainer. Man, I am so incredibly excited to be your guide on what is going to be a fascinating multidisciplinary journey into the science of gratitude. We're going to look way past the surface level advice you usually hear and dig deep into the actual neurobiology, the cultural sociology, and the clinical psychology of what it means to be truly thankful. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap. First, the true meaning of gratitude. Second, your brain on gratitude. Third, how culture shapes it. Fourth, escaping the hedonic treadmill. And finally, 5, some science-backed gratitude practices. All right, part 1, the true meaning of gratitude and why it's way more than just good manners. So you might be wondering, is gratitude just about being polite because, society tells you to be? Or is it actually a biological superpower? We so often mix up genuine gratitude with empty social conventions, forced politeness, or even that toxic positivity stuff. But when we look at the science, genuine gratitude is a whole different ballgame. To really get this, we've got to look at Robert Emmons. He's one of the world's leading scientific experts on the topic. He basically breaks gratitude down into 2 parts. First, it's an affirmation of goodness, just acknowledging, hey, there are good things in the world. Second, it's recognizing that the sources of this goodness lie outside of ourselves. From an evolutionary perspective, this is a deeply social moral emotion. It literally evolved to build bonds and promote reciprocal altruism, which basically means it helped our ancient ancestors survive by mutually looking out for each other. I absolutely love this quote from the sociologist George Simmel. He called gratitude the moral memory of mankind. I mean, think about that for a second. It acts like social glue. It signals that we recognize what others do for us, which completely prevents people from being seen as freeloaders who just take and never give back. It literally protects human groups against exploitation. Moving on to part 2, your brain on gratitude and how we're rewiring for well-being. Now, what's really interesting about this is how these brain regions work together in this amazing cascading effect. When you process grateful emotions, your medial prefrontal cortex, the part that handles moral cognition, lights up right alongside your anterior cingulate cortex, which is all about empathy and perspective taking. Together, they act like a top-down regulator on your amygdala. And the amygdala, that's your brain's threat detection center, your alarm system. So by dampening those alarms, gratitude actively shifts your nervous system out of that stressed fight or flight state. Actually, clinical studies from UCLA show that this downregulation physically lowers systemic inflammation markers in the body, things like TNF-alpha and IL-6. No way, right? And it gets even better when we look under the hood at the neurochemistry. Experiencing genuine appreciation uniquely balances 2 major systems. You get a sweet hit of dopamine, giving you that goal-oriented motivation and vigor, right alongside serotonin, which acts as a natural mood stabilizer. But wait, simultaneously, you're releasing oxytocin that boosts empathy and allows for something mind-blowing called interbrain synchronization, or IBS. Basically, when 2 people share gratitude, their neural frequencies actually start to sync up, helping them coordinate and cooperate. All right, part 3, how culture shapes gratitude, looking specifically at Japan versus Indonesia. There is a really stark contrast when we look at this data. Researchers used a taxonomy of different thanks situations, like getting a gift or receiving a compliment. Over in Japan, the expression arigato completely dominates the responses. But hop over to Indonesia, and makasih, which is kind of an informal thank you, is the main go-to. This is totally fascinating because it proves that while the biological hardware for gratitude is universal, the way we trigger and express it is highly dependent on our cultural context. This brilliantly highlights a core cultural divide. In Japan, gratitude is heavily tied to concepts of apology and indebtedness. So if someone goes out of their way to help a Japanese student, they're really likely to use sumimasen, which actually means I'm sorry, to express thanks. They're acknowledging the burden they just placed on that person. On the flip side, Indonesian students treat gratitude way more as a casual formality. They use makasih with almost zero reliance on their word for apology, maaf. They just don't attach that heavy burden of debt to everyday helpfulness. Let's shift gears to part 4, escaping the hedonic treadmill and disrupting adaptation. So, hedonic adaptation, what is it? It's basically the psychological villain of our explainer today. It's the process where we rapidly adjust to changes and just go right back to our baseline level of happiness. It is exactly why that shiny new car or that fancy espresso machine you absolutely had to buy totally loses its magic after a couple of months. Evolutionarily speaking, our brains are hardwired to do this. I mean, if we stayed endlessly hyped about every good thing, we'd have massive cognitive overload and completely miss new threats in our environment. Because of that, we get trapped in these phases. We feel bored, we crave stimulation, we convince ourselves, I need this thing to be happy, we get it, we feel great for a second, and bam, we adapt and go right back to being bored. It's an exhausting loop. But here's the kicker. Gratitude is the specific, scientifically proven mechanism to disrupt this cycle. By practicing cognitive specificity, meaning focusing on the highly detailed, sensory-rich aspects of the good things we have, and using stoic negative visualization, literally imagining our lives without those things, we can instantly shock our brains right off this treadmill. Let's move to part 5 and see how this all builds into science-backed gratitude practices and actual clinical protocols. First things first, we've got to clear the air about toxic positivity. A real gratitude practice is absolutely not about stuffing down difficult emotions or slapping on a fake smile when you're hurting. Doing that actually wrecks your emotional intelligence. True clinical resilience is built on emotional duality. That's the capacity to hold contradictory feelings at the exact same time. You can experience profound grief and simultaneously hold on to genuine gratitude without any emotional dishonesty whatsoever. One of the most rigorously tested ways to build this resilience is Martin Seligman's 3 Good Things, or 3GT protocol. The steps are beautifully simple, but neurologically speaking, they're profound. Step 1, you physically write down 3 positive events at the end of the day. Step 2, you reflect in granular detail on exactly why they happened. And step 3, you pinpoint your specific role in making them happen. The physical act of writing combined with that cognitive specificity is exactly what drives real neuroplastic change in your brain. So the crucial point here is just how insanely effective this is. In clinical trials, when severely depressed patients use this 3GT protocol for just 15 days, an astonishing 94% of them transition from severely depressed to mildly or moderately depressed. 94%! Just from writing down and analyzing 3 good things a day. That is incredible. Now, if daily journaling just isn't your jam, there's another amazing method rooted in the Huberman Lab protocols. See, generic lists often fail because they don't have any emotional depth. To bypass that, you use a narrative protocol. For just 1 to 5 minutes, 3 times a week, you deeply visualize a story of a time you received help or watched someone else get unexpected support. By focusing on receiving or perceiving gratitude inside a narrative, you powerfully light up those theory of mind networks in your brain, shifting your whole nervous system into this prosocial restorative state. I want to bring it back to that beautiful concept of emotional duality with a quote that just nails it. How lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. Surprisingly, that profound little nugget of emotional wisdom comes from Winnie the Pooh. It's so true, though. Grief is really just an enduring expression of love for what's been lost. And gratitude is how we honor the value of that connection and the beauty of what's still there. You literally don't have to choose between the two. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a lingering question. Now that you know the neurochemistry, the cultural nuances, and the actual clinical protocols, how will you recognize the gifts in your own life today? How are you going to step off that hedonic treadmill and use your biological superpower? Give it some thought, maybe even write it down, and start rewiring your brain. Thank you so much for learning with me today.